Ladies and gentlemen, get ready for the real estate revolutions. As of August the 17th, the biggest change in the century will transform the way people buy and sell real estate. Discover how these new commission rules could potentially save you money and change the landscape of the real estate industry and the experience forever.
Wow, the game of real estate has just changed forever.
You know, a lot of real estate agents are having a tough time hanging on right now.
So number one, let's talk about the monumental changes in the real estate commission. Decoupling the commissions. Okay, that was one of the biggest challenges that we had for many years. Sellers complained that they were taken advantage when they were interviewing real estate agents to sell a house, that they didn't understand that by paying a listing agent a commission, that they were also paying for the buyer agent commission, although the buyer agent commission owes fiduciary responsibility to their client, the buyer. Now, this also is going to have some kind of impact now in the percentage that has also paid. You see, it has never been established anywhere in the United States history of selling real estate that the commission was a fixed percentage. Although you hear a lot of people say, well, to sell a house, you have to pay 6% commission. It has never been a law or anything that it says that's what it is. Now, I will say that if a brokerage was successful at getting that amount of commission, obviously other brokerage probably want to try to imitate that and try to collect the same amount of money, but has never been a standard number. Now, part of the National Association of Realtors lawsuit, it says that realtors were kind of like a price fixing, and I wouldn't call that price fixing. Yet everybody has a standard how they would like to do business and sell a house. So for some companies, maybe it's a 6%, some others is 5%, some others is 4%. It all depends what it is, but there has never been any price fixing. Now, here is the advantage potentially. By removing this standard, and removing is probably a word that you have to pay attention very carefully. By looking at how this commission is going to be decoupled, they need to see how that maybe the structure of it is going to change. So let's put it in perspective. Now, how this is going to change. The belief is the sellers are now going to be saving some money by not having to pay these 5 or 6% commission. So let's do it here in simple math. So if a seller was thinking to pay 6% selling a house, now the seller is no longer obligated. So I'll give you an example. That 6% on a $500,000 sales price, it's $30,000 total commission. Under the traditional model, this money will be split 50-50. Under the new model, the seller is only obligated to pay for the agent he or her are hiring. In this case, let's say that's not a 6%, let's call that a 3%. So a 3% times $500,000, now the new amount is $15,000. So this is how the seller is potentially saving money. Now you're going to ask yourself, what's going to happen now with the other $15,000? Well, now a buyer will be responsible to hire an agent and pay an amount this buyer feels comfortable with. Can be 3%, can be 2.5%, can be 2%. It will be a negotiable amount between the buyer and the buyer's agent. So the settlement, it's about a $418 million settlement that all the National Association of Realtors and all these other brokerages agree to pay back. Now, keep in mind of this big settlement, 1/3 of this amount is probably going to go to the attorneys that were representing all these defendants or the plaintiffs. So you're probably looking at, and there are different reports out there, but what I'm hearing very consistently, it's close to $175 million is going to go to these attorneys. So these attorneys are making good money. Now, the people that affected people from this, class action lawsuit are only going to be probably getting less than $500. So not a big thing, but of course, they definitely messing up the industry. So this will be probably one of the biggest changes, as I call it, changes of the century to the real estate industry that we have not seen in years. From the establishing of the buyer agency commission, where buyers now have representation, to that has probably was the most significant changes, now to saying that yes, buyers can still have a representation, but the reality is now buyers will have to pay for their own agent. And let's be honest right here, how many buyers you think are going to be able to afford to pay for a buyer's agent? I don't know that many that will be able to afford these percentages. So initially, minorities, first-time home buyers, most likely are going to take a hit. And let's not go there right now to what happens if I don't hire my own agent without representation and I just go and work directly with a listing agent. Let's not go there yet. We'll talk about that later. So the settlement will take place. All these new guidelines will go into effect on August the 17th, 2024. And that's when all the new rules are going to be introduced. So let's move to the next point. Point number 2. What's the role of the National Association of Realtors in all this mess? So let's understand the National Association of Realtors, or NAR, is one of the largest organizations in the United States that sets policies for the real estate industry and transactions. They are the ones in charge to make sure they are the police, the government agency, although it's not part of the government, that kind of takes a look at what real estate agents are doing, not only to the public, but among their colleagues and peers, just to make sure you're not taking advantage of everybody else. So they have a set of rules, code of ethics, conducts, and so on, just to make sure everybody's in compliance. Now, not every real estate agent can be called a realtor or realtor, as some people call it. When you get your real estate license, you are a licensed real estate agent in the district or state that you wish to do business. By joining the National Association of Realtors, now you can be called a realtor, and you have to pay a fee on a yearly basis to be part of this association. As I said it before, members of the National Association of Realtors have to obey by the rules, and this is the code of ethics. But the commission amounts have never, ever been put together by the National Association of Realtors. That's always going to be a negotiable item, and it has always been. Now, you also heard about the multiple listing system, right? Well, the National Association of Realtors does not have an MLS. They don't own any MLS. So, also these lawsuits set some policies in place for the local MLSs to be in compliance. So one of the things that you're going to see is the agents can no longer. So let's say a seller wishes to pay a commission to a buyer agent because they were raised that way and they just want to pay it that way, okay? This is their option. So one of the things that this lawsuit says that there is not going to be a section in the local MLS in which a seller says that how much money commission they'd be willing to pay to a buyer's agent, or at least it's unclear at this point how that's going to be managed. Sellers still have the option to pay for a buyer's agent, but the MLS chooses not to distribute that, not display that information. Now, you'll be thinking, well, wouldn't that be a disadvantage if a seller chooses not to pay a commission and agents maybe not going to show that property? Well, that will be up to an agent and his or her client to decide if they wanted to see a house that is not paying a compensation. Now, the MLS is not going to let agents search by commissions. So give me a list of properties that are only paying a commission. That is not going to be possible in the MLS, as what we've been told. So agents will have to be all act as standard all across the board, and then will be up to the buyer to make the decision if they want to see a house in which the seller may or may not choose to collaborate. That will be up to them. I'm not suggesting that is the way. I'm not an attorney. I'm not dictating any law, but the standard practices will be that they will have to tell their agent if they want to see a house that is not offering a commission. In terms of the agent practices, the National Association of Realtors make sure that all these greedy real estate agents out there are not taking advantage of clients. And this is where it comes to the point that it says, well, what if a buyer cannot pay the commission of a buyer agent and chooses to work with the listing agent? Keep in mind that a listing agent cannot represent the buyer at the same time. I know there's some states where that is allowed and it has to be done in writing, but for most parts, you cannot be represented by one real estate agent because it causes conflict of interest. So if you're thinking about to work around the system and go and work with a listing agent because you're going to get a better deal, warning, do not trust everybody out there. Do your due diligence. Now let's just move to point number 3. So what's the impact of all these changes to buyers and sellers? Let's dissect that. So now sellers, as I said, they're only going to be negotiating the commission that they are willing to pay to a listing agent for a set of things that this agent will perform in order to sell the house. Now, there is no longer an obligation that the listing agent needs to collect commission to participate with a co-op agent or a buyer's agent. Now, some agents may continue to keep the same standards and advise sellers that maybe it's in their best interest to pay for an agent. Some other agents are not going to care, and they just, as long as I get paid. But remember, in order for you to sell a house, you need a buyer and you need a seller. You need a listing agent And definitely you need a buyer's agent. I am very serious when I say that. And I know I'm going to get in trouble for saying those things, but I know that you need a buyer's agent. Now, not every agent is formed and educated the same way. I get it. You have to do your due diligence. Let me know here in the comments, would you be willing to buy a house without using a buyer's agent? And if you tell me in the comments that you'd be willing, tell me the main reasons why you will do it. Although I'm saying in this video not to do it. Now, this is very important. Buyers must have a signed agreement with a buyer agent in order to see a property. And this agreement can be for 1 day, for 1 hour, for 1 month, for 6 months, for 10 years. It doesn't matter as long as you have an agreement with an agent as a buyer to go and see a property. That is one of the things that is mandatory now, that you need to have that in writing. So this, I'm sure that if you want to stamp your signature, put your signature on a document like this, now you probably want to know what this agent is going to do for you if you're going to be hiring an agent to, and you're going to be paying X percentage to help you find a house. Not like before, you go to this website and you request to see a property, and then anybody that was available that day will basically come and show you the property. Now, this person has no clue about what the property offers. Sometimes they don't know where the houses are located. They don't know about the schools. All they do is acting as an opening a door for you to see a property. Listen, if that's what it be all about, real estate opening doors, and that's all they should do, yeah, they shouldn't even exist. But the good agents do more than just opening doors and tell you if you should make an offer on that house. You have to agree with me on this one because it is the truth. So sellers will need to continue to be aware of what kind of compensation it's available in the area in case they feel like, well, if I wanted to be competitive, I wanted to do that way. And let's use an example, right? If you have a house that it is on the market and this seller, the house is not selling, the listing agent is coming to tell the seller, we need to reduce the price in order to make it happen. Most likely a seller at that point is going to say, well, what if we offer a compensation for a buyer's agent before we make a price adjustment, right? It's a very logical move to try to sell the property. So there's just definitely have to be very informed if everybody's going to be willing to completely not offer a compensation. Some people will offer compensation, others not. You got to be really aware, and a good listing agent should tell you the pros and cons of you offering or not offering a commission out there. Now you're asking, Robert, but what about, can the seller offer compensation? And is that possible? Yeah, it is possible. You can offer a compensation to a buyer's agent, and that should be all worked out very well. Still, the logistics of that are unknown, how everything's going to work out in paperwork, but I'm sure as we approach the deadline, we'll know how all these things are going to take effect. The potential savings for a seller is obvious. If they choose not to pay an agent, buyer's agent, there will be some savings, but can also be longer days on the market. Who knows if that's going to be the case? I'm not trying to say that days on the market are related with paying a compensation. It is, in fact, it has to do with the property condition, the marketing that the listing agent is doing for the house, the local marketing, what's happening in your neighborhood and your state, your area, your county. So there's a lot of different things that you have to take into consideration before you can say my house is not selling and I have to reduce the price, or maybe it was overpriced to begin with. Got to be very careful with that. So point number 4 are going to be the new challenges. These are going to be the new challenges in my opinion. I think affordability, as I said earlier, is going to be a big issue. Many buyers won't be able to afford to compensate for a buyer's agent. And maybe here's where buyer's agents have to probably reduce their fees. Maybe that should be a solution. Maybe there has to be a way around it. I know some lenders are looking into an override into the lending guidelines to see if the seller is willing to pay for a buyer agent, can be given as a credit to the buyer, so the buyer have the money to pay towards a buyer's agent. I know that's not all set in stone. Those are just potential things that lenders are working, but that is definitely going to be a big issue for certain buyers that cannot afford to hire an agent and don't want to be a victim of working directly with a listing agent. And listen, I'm not trying to say listing agents are bad. All I'm saying that they just don't represent you, period. That's all it is. Which will lead to have more complex negotiation things, and skills are going to be required to negotiate these kinds of deals as these policies take effect and reshape the entire industry. So we all have to be very careful how we're going to manage a lot of these things. And definitely not for the person that just got a license that can tell you I can help you buy or sell a house. This definitely is going to have big changes. I don't believe any of these changes are going to crush the market. The market can only be crushed because of economic factors, a war or a pandemic or anything like that. So I don't think any of these changes will create a change in the market, but it definitely may slow things down as everybody gets adjusted to adopt the new system and live within the new system. Definitely. I think it's going to be a slow process for everybody to learn what is it that we need to be doing and how experienced agents should be able to work with buyers and convince them that they deserve to get paid whatever amount they want to charge. I think this is going to also bring a new model when it comes to compensation. There's definitely going to be different models of compensation for buyers that are going to come out of nowhere. Some creative companies are probably going to come up with ways to pay a percentage, a flat fee. Maybe you have to pay a flat fee just to see houses, another flat fee to write an offer, another flat fee to do an inspection, another flat fee to negotiate the inspection. You see what I'm saying? There's going to be a lot of these things to do that you probably, it will be where some companies are going to get creative and come up with new systems. It could be, I don't know. Just be careful, to be honest with you. Regardless of how innovative this can be, just be careful because you're really buying something. It's a huge investment. It's a lot of money you're putting in that I don't think you want to just put it at the mercy of someone that for $500 will do the whole thing for you, because I think you'd be making a huge mistake if you're doing something like this. So here's the implication for any buyers, but for my type of buyers, the upsizers, like moving to a bigger home. You're definitely going to have to make decisions that are going to be based on what you want and what is best for you and what kind of priorities are going to be the ones for you, your family, your loved ones. And if it doesn't check all the boxes for what it's the best for you and your family needs, then you probably have to make some adjustments and do something that it's a workaround process, or maybe having to do something where you will have to make a decision that maybe you need to work directly with the listing agent. Can be a possibility. Now, when it comes to buying a house, now you not only have to budget for your down payment, your closing costs, your repairs, your moving fees. Now you maybe have to budget also to compensate for a buyer's agent that will assist you in the process to oversee from the initial interview, overseeing the whole process until the day of settlement. Selecting an agent is going to be a big problem because as you're going to get bombarded with a lot of people telling you I can help you buy a house for a discounted fee, for a lower fee. Remember, those people, I always tell this to my seller clients. If an agent is willing to discount his or her fee at the beginning, that only gives you an indication of the negotiating skills they have, and also it's an indication how they're going to treat the sale of your house, meaning they'll try to discount the sale of your house in order to get it done right away without knowing and trying to understand and how to sell a property. So if an agent is not capable to sell his or her own services, experience, and capabilities, and will be willing to discount their fee, I think that's going to be a huge issue moving forward for everybody. So be aware of that, please. Some investors are probably gonna, it's about a bottom line number, right? So some investors are probably gonna take the risk to work with listing agents. So you also have to be careful with a lot of that stuff. So definitely, take that into consideration, as well as when they need to resell a house that are flipping. Investors are probably not going to be able to pay a buyer agent fee and may choose not to do it, and you have to make that decision. I'll tell you this, you have to pay attention to experience. You have to pay attention to the quality of service. You have to pay attention to the resources this agent is going to bring to the table. You have to pay attention to how systematic this process is going to be. How many times I've heard from buyers that are in the middle of a transaction and they say, well, we don't hear often from our agent. And we kind of worry because last time we heard from him was like 2 weeks ago. Unless your agent is dead or is sick in the hospital, you should be able to touch base with your agent on a weekly basis, even if there are no updates, but at least just to say, hey, I'm just checking on you, making sure you're fine. There's really nothing to update you on the purchase of the house. We're at this point waiting for whatever is happening on the back end, whether it's a lender, inspection, repairs. So, but I'll sure give you an update next week so that we know what's going on. So those are the kind of the things that we need to pay attention. And I think I come to the end of my video. Whoa, it's a lot of information that I was able to put together. This was going to be a very special video. So I want to make sure that you're taken care of. And if you're looking to upsize, move to this area, Maryland, DC, and Virginia, feel free to click on the link right there. If you want to chat with me, we can have a video call. We can have a face-to-face meeting. We can have coffee together, and so that we can talk about your wants and needs and your potential move. If you're looking to sell, same thing. I'm available to that. So do me a favor, click on that button, like this video, and if you see any value in subscribing to my video, smash that subscribe, and I promise I'll bring you another video just like this next week. Goodbye.